أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وبه نستعين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا بالقاسم محمد وعلى عترة الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Thank you so much for joining us on Real Talk. Eid Mubarak, belated Eid Mubarak. I hope you had an amazing Eid, inshallah, and an amazing Dhul Hijjah. Well, as amazing as it could be away from the holy cities. Today, I'd like to invite Tahera Jaffer to be our guest on Real Talk. And this will be actually our last talk for a while because next week is Eid. And the week after, we have a Muharram session where we're preparing for Muharram, getting into the right mindset, inshallah. So let's get right into it. Assalamu alaikum, Tahera.
Walaikum salam. How are you?
Alhamdulillah. How are you?
Alhamdulillah. Thank you for
so
having me.
No, thank you for agreeing to be on the show. Do you want to just introduce yourself to the viewers?
Sure. My name is Tahera Jaffer. I was originally from Dar es Salaam, born in Dar es Salaam. We moved to New York with my family when I was 9 years old. At the age of 18, I got married and moved to LA.
Wow, 18. Sorry, I'm going to keep interrupting you if you don't mind.
It's okay. Got married in 1992, so it's been a long time I've been married, alhamdulillah.
You realize you've told everyone your age at this moment.
It's okay. There's nothing wrong in telling people your age.
Alhamdulillah. I like the way you think.
So moved to New York. From New York to LA with my husband. Have a wonderful life, alhamdulillah, blessed with wonderful family, including extended family. I had a career there. I worked for the cable industry. I started as an admin assistant all the way to handling over 450 employees to 5 to 6 offices as a human resources manager. I would liaise them with the corporate office to do cases for them that are sensitive that the regional managers could not handle, just they would give me to handle. So alhamdulillah, I've been blessed with that. Then I had the opportunity, once all the siblings were married, including on both sides, had the opportunity to serve my parents. So we moved back to New York to take care of my parents. And then
Can I just stop you here for a minute? So you said you got married at 18, so that was very, very young.
Yes.
How was that? Did you feel you were too young? Was it something you wanted? Was it something that was sort of expected from you? Because most people at the age of 18 are not generally ready for marriage.
I felt I was ready. It was a decision as a family, back then it was a norm in a way, and there's no such thing as a norm. That's what I've learned through this whole journey. Like, what you expect and what people expect to be the norm isn't really necessarily the norm for you. But for me, at the beginning, I did think I was a bit young, but now looking back, I think it was the best thing God ever gave me, because I and my husband and I became best of friends, and we grew up together. And so he knows me as a person through all my weaknesses and my good, and that actually makes us stronger. So I look at it that way.
And I love the way, alhamdulillah, that's amazing. And I love the way that you said that when all the siblings got married from both sides. Why did you feel that that was important for you, especially from your in-law side? Because obviously they're not your direct siblings.
Yeah, so to the world, they are my in-laws. To me, Jaffer and Jamil are my brothers. I don't have true brothers like from my own side, but they treated me as a sister, and I treat them as my brother. As a matter of fact, at times when I have issues, I actually do call them and talk to them first. So I consider them as my brothers. So I have to say they are my siblings.
That's beautiful. Can I, any advice you can give to sort of build that bond between sort of family, when you're marrying into a family? It's very difficult. I mean, obviously you have that connection with your husband, but it's very difficult to get that connection with what's considered as the in-laws. How did you manage to go in with that mindset, or did you go in with that mindset, and how did it come about that you actually feel that they're your brothers so much so that you actually phone them up for advice and things like that?
So first, it takes from both sides. It has to be on both sides to consider them not as an in-law, but as a brother and sister. Alhamdulillah, may Allah elevate my father-in-law's status. Papa used to always introduce me as his daughter, and he would always tell, Jamil and Jaffer, this is your sister, not your sister-in-law. Jamil refused to call me Bobby because we're almost the same age, because then it wouldn't be a sister. But Jaffer didn't have a choice. Papa was like, you have to call her Bobby. So it just was Papa on top of it. And then of course my parents raised us in a way that your cousins were your brothers. You know, you never call them your cousin, you call them your brother. So I think it starts from young and how your family brings you up, in my opinion.
Having that sort of extended family, sort of thinking that they're part of your family rather than they're your cousins and so forth.
Yes.
Beautiful. Sorry, so you were saying that then you moved to look after your parents?
Moved to New York. It was an easier journey because, I've never given birth to any child. I've never had an opportunity that, I was able to have a child. But Allah has blessed me with children all around the world, which actually made the journey easier, because if I had children, Salim and I, uprooting the children from LA to move them to New York with school and friends and everything would have been more of a difficult journey. At that time, I didn't understand why I didn't have a children. But once we moved to New York and, we started taking care of my mom and my dad, and vice versa, they taking care of us, it became more like I started realizing what was Allah's plan. That it wasn't whether it was me or was it the children, or is it the fact that, what my plan was to move to New York to help my parents and they help us and go with that journey instead.
Okay, can I just stop you here for a minute? Okay, so please just let me know if I'm asking something you're not comfortable with answering. Okay, so you said you don't have any children of your own that you've given birth to as such, yes, but you have children all over the world. Can you sort of expand on that a little bit?
Okay, so looking back now, I think when you're going through this struggle of not having a child, which is a big struggle, a struggle that never goes away, but with time, you actually can look back at things. And when I look back at it, I think when I was 15 years old, my first child is Zahra Jabin. I have to say that. I was 15, wasn't married yet, wasn't engaged. And I remember my cousin and his wife were expecting their first child. And I would say, this is my baby, up to the point that, how you're childish, I had them actually sign a piece of paper that said that this was my baby, so when you're 15, 16, you're like a bit like, what is going on? But they actually signed it. Until this day, Zahra Jabin, she's very close to my heart. I love her a lot. She's a mother of her own now. She's married, but I remember going to mosque. My dad would drop me off at their house. I would get her ready so I could take her inside the mosque. And they gave me that ability. So when you look back, so she's my first child. And ever since then, even though God didn't give me my own child, for some reason, he kept on bringing children into the picture. Whether it was me teaching madrasa, whether it was me, teaching children workshop, whether it's me just with the family, with their children, he just, everywhere I'm surrounded with kids. I have one in Dar es Salaam or a couple in Dar es Salaam. I've had, some in London. I have, so I'm saying all over the world. I have some in New York. I have some in LA. Alhamdulillah, they're all over, and so I'm very proud of them.
Obviously, children are a huge deal in your life. The fact that you wanted to have a child that was your own sort of thing, from the age of 15, shows that it was something. I mean, obviously, it's in every woman's. It's inbuilt in us that we want to have children, we want to be mothers. You were never given that opportunity biologically. And obviously on hindsight, you're looking back and thinking, okay, I may never have given birth to a child, but I have lots and lots of children. That's very easy to say on hindsight. Did you always feel like that? Was there, were you always content at the fact that you weren't given children?
Yes, resentment of course comes, and if anybody says it doesn't, is actually never going to heal, never going to accept. So at the beginning, you look forward to, you're trying, and then unfortunately, the month comes and you're crying, and you're disappointed, you're sad, and it was a long journey. I mean, for years, this would happen. Alhamdulillah, we had ourselves checked out, everything was fine, we thought of adoption, but that didn't pan out. We tried different. We had someone once said, I'm willing to carry your baby, if you want to consider that. That option was available. We looked at different options, but that helps to a point. But going through it, it's very hard. You get jealous, you get sad, you get depressed, you cry a lot, you get angry, unfortunately, angry at God. And
really jealous. Explain the jealousy a little bit more.
So it's oh, wow. it's seeing others who have children who, who it's easy for them to have children. They tried, and next thing 9 months later they have a child, and you're over there struggling, and they're all happy, and you're happy that they have a child. It's not that you're not happy with them, but you're like, why is it that I can't have that? Why is it that she's lucky? And then you hear those parents like complaining, like, oh, kept me awake all night long, I couldn't sleep, and I think, I wish I could actually stay awake all night long. I wish that I could take care of a child. I wish I could hold my own child or sleep with my own child. Now these children all around the world, alhamdulillah, they treat me well and they respect me, but at the end of the day, they're not with me at home physically, right? But if I called upon them, inshallah, they will come, hopefully running towards me. But that option is not there. So there was always that that jealousy feeling, like, oh my gosh, she got married the same time as I did. 10 years later, I still don't have a child. And, you're still struggling 10 years, 12 years, 15 years later. You're still like, why me? Why me? Why can't I have a child?
So I think what's coming through, which is quite fascinating, is that you're not just jealous of the good times, but you're jealous of the bad times that they're having as well. It's like the sleepless nights and the worries and the hassle that children bring into your life. And I think it wasn't just you just you didn't want just the good things. You wanted all of it, the whole package.
Oh, definitely. I guess when you can't have something, you actually, you look at it as like, what, you're taking things for granted. You actually want to say that to people. You're taking that for granted. You should be happy that you're having this problem and not having the problem that I have. Instead, if you say that, you're scared to say that. First of all, that comes also with the territory. When you don't have children, you're scared to say certain things. But if it's the other way around, people are not scared to come and tell us how to feel, or what to do. And I know they mean well, but you're already hurting, and it actually hurts even more. Like when someone.
Can you give us some examples here of maybe something that someone said without meaning to be hurtful?
Of course, and I know they mean well, and I have said this to some people too myself. It's not like you realize in time that when you've gone through it, that you have to be careful what you say, but I have even done that to my own friends who are having issues with getting getting children. So like one of the things I remember, and this is where I want to get the message across, that you have to see Allah in everything. It's hard, but you have to. I remember a time when someone actually, I used to do a lot of jedel work. People would get married, they would ask me to be their jedel, and I used to do that. And I think I've had
jedel means being the sort of
bridesmaid, bridesmaid. So like I had like 15 or 16 brides that I actually was a bridesmaid too, right?
Wow.
I think after the 7th or 8th one, I had actually someone within the family who I know meant well, came up to me and said, I think you should stop being the jedel. And I'm like, why? Because you don't have any children. And that could, not be a good thing for a person starting to get married, starting a new life. At that point, I felt so like, I was like, wow, am I a bad omen? Because, you start like doubting yourself. Am I less inferior? What does that have to do with me not having children? And I know she meant well, just it hurts a lot. It's like, what do you mean? And then you have alhamdulillah, like I said, I've been blessed with an amazing, outstanding family that I wasn't telling anybody anything. I was struggling on my own. I was very angry, and I'm like, no. And I get a phone call, and it was Tahera by Kasmali, and she's like, Tahera, Shaista's engaged, and we'd like you to be her jedel. And I remember telling her, Tahera, because somebody had just said that. I didn't want to say that. I didn't want to, So I was telling her, I go, maybe somebody else who's much better, or someone closer to her, someone her own age, maybe better. And this is what she said, and I still remember this with all my heart, and it gives me so much strength. He says, we as a family thought about it, and we thought that you would be the best person.
Wow.
And I'm thinking to myself, what? Maybe I'm not seeing myself who I am. She's seeing who I am. Forget what anybody else says. I will definitely, say yes. Why not? And at that point, I said, let me talk to Shaista first before I agree, because I wanted to talk to her to see if she was okay with it. But it was Allah sent her to me when I was feeling so low, thinking that I was bad luck, because I didn't have any children. But
I suppose one of the things, when people say something like that, it's like it's literally putting the blame on you that you've done something wrong, and that's why you haven't got kids. So in a roundabout way, I suppose it's like, oh, you must have committed some sort of sin, or you must have done something bad, or there's a reason why God's punishing you with this.
Yes.
Is that the sort of feeling you are getting from people?
Yes, a feeling of sin, feeling of failure, feeling of being less of a woman. It just comes with it because when you're a child, you have this, like, especially when you're trying to get married, you have this, like, this fantasy, that you're gonna walk down to the mosque with your garara or whatever, and you have all these people there, and then after a few years of marriage, you're gonna have children, and they're gonna have their children, and you're gonna be grandparents, and you're gonna grow old, and you have this whole image of what your perfect life, what your ideal life would be, and then you have, your struggle, and you're like, oh my gosh, my life is not the way I'm imagining. It's not working out. Why is it not working out? Right. So you start feeling like less and less of a person, saying, what's wrong with me? And the thing is that you're already feeling that. And, when you go to the mosque, I had one person who actually, I remember going to New York, and I don't know this person very well. She came and touched my stomach and tells me, so are you expecting, when's the due date? And I'm like, no, I'm not expecting. Thank you very much for touching me, but I'm not, but it's just the way, I think the society says that you have to be a mother, right? But I don't think you have to be a mother to be complete or blessed by Allah. Yes, it's a blessing to have a child. And don't get me wrong, if we have a child right now, both my husband and I would be like heaven on earth, but yet we also understand Allah's plan, right? And we have to accept Allah's plan. And that took a long while for me to accept it. There was a lot of healing involved in it.
So I want to get to that stage where you're sort of the journey that you went on to get to that stage where you accepted it. But I just want to concentrate on this aspect where how, as a community, we tend to sort of put, rather than helping people, we may be sort of hurting them. And I just want to focus on that a little bit. Obviously, it's your journey and you've got to get your head around it, and we'll talk about that. But as a community, I think, like you're saying, one of the things that, we have this expectation of everyone that, they have to get married, then they have to have kids, and then their kids have to have kids, and this is how it's supposed to work. And if it doesn't, then there's something wrong. So yes, we may say things which maybe makes the other person feel like they're doing something wrong, but there's other people who will come up to you and sort of just I suppose off the cuff remarks like, oh, you've been married for this many years, so when are you going to have a child?
Yes.
What's stopping you? It's like, don't you think it's about time you had a kid?
Yes.
How did those sort of comments go down? And what would you say to people who say things like that without meaning it hurtful? I think it's just off the cuff remarks that, we generally make without thinking.
So for me, it was like a knife coming through my heart, right? Because I'm already struggling, right? I'm already know that I'm already not having a child, right? I already am struggling with him. I don't need to be reminded again and again that I'm not, right, having a child. I know for them, it's like, it's easy, because they're trying to console me. It's like, I looked at, now when I look at it, it's more like, when someone passes away, right? And you go to give condolences, sometimes we don't know what to say. So it's better just to keep quiet and just hold their hand and say, may Allah, we're praying for the marhum if there's anything you need, rather than asking, what happened? How did it happen? It will, that doesn't help the situation. It's the same exact here, right? We already know that we're struggling. And when I say we have a group of people who we talk to each other about, and only we ourselves can understand. I mean, I can come talk to you, but you wouldn't understand my pain. Vice versa, I wouldn't understand your pain with the children that you go through, right? It's the same exact concept. So we as a group, we realize that, people do mean well, but like, for instance, have you considered adoption? Of course we have considered adoption. It's not like we haven't, right? I know they're giving us options, or, what, I want you to do this amal, and I want you to do this amal. And it becomes really burdensome on me because I'm already doing amal on it. Now you're asking me to do amal. I don't know how to respond to you saying, no, I don't want to do this amal. I can't, I don't have faith in this amal because you're young and you have work, you have all this other stuff that's going on. But and the thing is, it always is burden on you. No one's ever come and said, oh, you know what? You and your husband need to do this amal together. Oh, give this to your husband to do the amal. It's always on me, And I'm like, wait a second, how did you get away with doing amal? I'm like, if I'm doing this amal, you're doing this amal together. We're in it together. It's not, separate. But it's just, I know they mean well, and amals do help. Don't get me wrong, they do help. But it wasn't something that, that it helps you to get closer to God, definitely. But it's not something that is guaranteed either, right? Only Allah guarantees it. And
I think here I'd probably say, like, in a way, maybe if you didn't do the amal that people suggested, you may think maybe that's why you're not having. That may have been the one that would have worked. So you feel the pressure to do every single thing that everyone tells you, and that, like you're saying, if you're trying to hold down work and do everything else, and you're already not in the right frame of mind, and then to have this on top of it, being told do this by so many different people, it must be huge, so that sort of burden on you to sort of, if I don't do it, what if that was the one that would have worked?
Yeah, exactly.
I think maybe as a community, one of the things that we can take away is, rather than telling the other person to do the amal, actually doing the amal for them myself. So if I know that
somebody who did that. Actually, somebody came and said, there's an amal that's supposed to be done by you, but I did it on your behalf. I hope you don't mind. And I'm like,
how does that
feel? You. I'm like, thank you. You don't understand. That means so much to me. It's like somebody else who loves me enough to go the extra mile, right? It's that extra, that the burden falls on her, right? And then inshallah, they say that if somebody else prays for you, Allah will listen, and I'm hoping that would be it, So I had a lot of people who actually came and said, you know what, I did this for you. Or, somebody said, like, I know life is really, really hard, so I'm not going to give you this big old thing, but I'm going to give you something very small to do. Recite salawat, it will help, and those are the things that, like, salawat you can do anytime, and it becomes just so much easier, right? So there are certain, but the thing is that for the people who are coming and telling me they do the amal, it's their faith that this amal is really, really going to help, right? And I can't break their faith, and so you do it,
But if it's their faith, then they're going to do it with much more passion, and therefore it'll probably work better if they do it rather than telling you to do it, who doesn't really feel that this is the right amal sort of thing.
Yes, in my opinion, yes, it would have been more helpful.
So, okay, does it help for you to be told that someone's done something for you, or would you rather that people just did it and didn't tell you, or didn't come and say anything? Or does it actually make you feel better that people are praying for you and doing specific amals and maybe going for ziyarah and praying for you and things like that? Does that make you feel better, or does it just make you feel worse for it? I mean, obviously it's different for different people. I'm just wondering for yourself, how was it? Was it better when you were told by people that, for example, they'd gone to ziyarat and they'd prayed specifically for you, or they'd done a specific amal for you?
Yes, actually, it made me feel better that it's not my own journey. Someone cares more for me, to pray for me, especially in the land of Karbala, or on the holy shrines, even in Makkah. It helps. It helps with the fact that you're not alone in this. They are, and mind it, there's a lot of us who don't have children. It's not like one every one or two. There's more of us like us. There's more of us who also are struggling to have a child, and then years later have a child. So it's that struggle is there now. It's more common than uncommon now, that you hear stories of, like, it took me like so long to get pregnant. I had to do this to get pregnant. So it's become more of, like, a struggle for a lot of us women, or even the men, because we forget to tend to understand the husbands also have feelings, they also go through it, except that we're more open about it, and our grief is different from their grief.
So, seeing as you brought your husband in, was it something that you guys talked about a lot, or was it just you dealt with it your way and he dealt with it his way, or was it something that you actually sat down and talked about, and how did you sort of decide how to move forward with this?
So, of course, we talked about it. It's both of us, right? It's like both of us wanted to have kids. We both want kids. It's just, I sometimes was more angry at the fact that I didn't feel like he was grieving as I was grieving, like it meant as much. But when you think about it, men grieve in a different way. Now looking back at it, they grieve in a different way. They have to be strong. They need to take care of you. And when you look at that, then you realize that what, that's how he's grieving as well. So I think the thing is, the one thing that he said to me till now, I remember, it's the best thing he's ever said to me, was that what, you're my family, and that's enough. And that makes you realize that what, children become part of your family. It's not the other way around. Children are not your family. They become part of your family. The two of you are first family. And as long as you two are in sync, and both of you are going through the same struggle, maybe different ways, but your goal is the same, then what, alhamdulillah, you actually can meet all odds. And mind it, a lot of people feel like the easiest way is to just move separately, move away from each other, right? But it's
I was
not.
actually going to ask that. Did you ever consider sort of separating? Because you said there was nothing wrong with the two of you as such. So it's not that, you could say, okay, this is wrong, so we can, get medical help with that or things. So there's nothing specifically wrong with you two. So did you ever consider, okay, you know what, let's go our separate ways and maybe we'll have kids with some other partner?
No, we didn't consider that, because you know what? Marriage is more important first, right? That's what Allah says, right? Divorce is not really liked by Allah. In my opinion, not being able to have children is not a legit reason in the eyes of God, in my opinion, in the eyes of God, to, go that route, So I never considered. If he thought about it, he never discussed it with me. But, there's always other options available. It's like, what if there was something physically wrong with you, right? Don't you accept that? Let's say you got sick during the time, throughout your life. Do you leave that person? You don't leave that person because they got sick or ill. You were in it together. I mean, you made, the decision to get married because Allah loves that. Then, this is not, in my opinion, a valid reason for you to like separate for this reason,
So I suppose it goes back to what is the purpose of marriage, and if the main purpose of marriage is just to have children, then yes, it would make sense. Then you would separate. If the purpose, again, the main purpose of marriage is for him to make me happy, and he's not, then of course you would separate. So I suppose it's thinking about what the main purpose. I mean, there's lots of small purposes,
yeah.
But what's the main? There's lots of benefits rather than purposes. There's lots of benefits to marriage, but there's the main purpose of marriage. What do you see that as?
The main purpose in my marriage, I feel, is that he makes me happy and that I trust him. The trust is there. So in the sense that, I know for a fact that if I fall down, he'll come pick me up, right? Regardless how upset I am. I know for a fact that, if I get hurt, he gets hurt. So the fact that, I'm hurting, and mind it, like this journey of not having a children, yes, I accept Allah's plan, but it's not something that goes away. Just the other day I was crying, so and he, was there to comfort me. So it's not like, it goes away. It's the need or the wanting of having a child is always there. It doesn't go away.
It's like I noticed you said we want children, so you didn't say we wanted. So it's obviously still there by the words that you're using, that it's something you still want. It's not something that you've sort of resigned to. Okay, you know what, we're not going to get, so let's move on.
Yes,
it doesn't work like that, obviously.
Definitely. Accepting Allah's plan or seeing Allah's plan is different from, that desire doesn't go away. The mind and the heart cannot be synced at all times. They're always battling each other. Your mind tells you, yes, it's Allah's plan, accept it. But that heart, because you have this love that you want to share, and you want this desire, that doesn't mean it goes away. It's not a desire that's a wrongful desire. It's a wonderful desire. And just because I don't have children, that doesn't mean Allah has not blessed me. He sent guides for us for everywhere, right? You see Bibi Kulthum, for example, right? She didn't have any children, right? Does that mean in Karbala she felt like any less of a person because she couldn't sacrifice? Of course not, right? So Allah sent us saying that, don't worry, you're not a sinner, because look at this, don't feel about it. But the thing is that we tend to, I call it noise. And the reason I only call it noise is because, it's a lot of information that comes from different sides. You have like the TV world, that the perfect ideal family is to have, marriage with 2 kids, with a son and a daughter. And then, you have the perfect car outside your house, the American dream, as they call it, But let's say Allah granted you 2 girls, right? Does that mean that, the desire of having a boy is never going to be there? It's always going to be there, right? Yes, I want a son, right? It doesn't go away. The same concept. Just because I don't have children now and I accept that, but doesn't mean the desire goes away. Of course we want children. And if Allah gives it, you hear stories that people get pregnant at 65. I don't know how, but they do, So you never know. If that's what Allah's plan is for me at that point, then fine, I'll accept it at that point, inshallah. And then I'll be calling all of you to help me, but inshallah.
That's amazing. Going back to the purpose of marriage, you said that the purpose of your marriage was for your husband to make you happy. So when he doesn't, okay, so when he doesn't make you happy, because I'm sure he doesn't make you happy all the time, you can't have that perfect marriage. I don't think there is such a thing as that perfect a marriage where you're constantly making each other happy. How do you get through those times then, if that's the purpose of your marriage?
it's like anything, right? Anything in life, you have struggles. So you have to first figure out what is the reason why you're upset. And half the time it's not even him, it's you. You know, uh, Actually, most of the time it's you. It's the same. So once you figure out why you're really upset, then you actually see the clear picture. So it's not the fact that he didn't make me happy. It's the fact that I wasn't seeing that. I wasn't happy because I'm not happy, not the other way around. I
So
look at
then
it.
really it's not up to him to make you happy. It's for you to decide whether you want to be happy or not.
Yes. And that's one of the things that helped me accept Allah's plan. I had to love myself first. If I love myself, because Allah loves me. So if Allah loves me the way I am, the way He created me, then why should I not love myself? And once I love myself, everything else that anybody else says, it becomes like a shield, right? You get this shield in front of you that even if someone says something that could hurt you, it actually bounces back.
Okay, so that's a really powerful statement. How do you go about loving yourself?
You have to accept yourself. So first, like for me, the fact that we don't have children, I had to understand. I had to grieve. I mean, when we lose someone, we go through the grieving process, right? So I've lost something, the loss of not having to be a mother. It's a loss. So you have to identify that it's a loss, and then you have to go through the grieving process. And the grieving process could be a very long time or could be a short time depending on the person. For me, it was quite long. It's like a roller coaster. You think you've gotten yourself to the point where, yes, I'm good. I've talked to God. I've spoken to God in many ways. They say that now there's an etiquette to talking to God, but back in the day, when you're going through all this, you really don't have that etiquette with God. You actually are angry. You speak to Him in angry. I've done all that. I've told Him, I don't understand why you're doing this to me, and it's not like He's doing it to me. It's like He has the best interest for me now that I understand. But you go through that. Why me? Why only me? And the struggle is not only for me, if you understand. It's also for my family, right? My extended family. There's hopes that my mother-in-law has. There's hopes for like my brothers and my sisters to be called aunts and uncles. There's that hope of that. So it's just not a personal thing. It's also people around you who are expecting their loss as well, right? So you have to grieve, and grieving takes a long time. Once you understand what you have lost, once you lose and you understand that, and then you find your purpose, that what, this may not be my purpose in life, right? Like you could be you can work, that's fine. That's you. You could be an aunt, that's a role. You can be a daughter, that's a role. But maybe motherhood is not one of the roles that I have to fulfill in this life. So you have to just understand that there are many aspects of you, and there's a purpose for you that Allah sent you in this world, and you just have to define that purpose. And for me, it was a lot easier because every time I felt low, Allah sent a child in my life, somebody else's child, but sent a child in my life. And some of the stuff that they say would be just like amazing. I remember having a conversation. We were having a football party, and we had our family over in New York, and we were just having. I goes, yeah, when Salim and I get old, we were just talking about visiting the old people at homes. I go, yeah, Salim and I get old, we'll be at a home like this. I hope somebody comes and visits us. And like randomly, you have Rosina, who is my Salim's cousin's daughter. And goes, don't worry, Tahera, auntie, we'll come see you. And you're like, oh, okay. You know what? That made me feel so good. I'm like, all right, fine, and that's it. Why are you worried? I'm like to myself, okay, God, He sends you. But the thing is that at the beginning, I used to always feel resentment, right? Why is God keep on sending me this child? Why is he putting he's like, why he keeps on sending me this and makes me feel like, He just wants me to realize that I don't have a child. I don't have a child. But then if I change my perspective to say God is sending this to show me that, what? Yes, you may not be having your own child, but I'm going to have you experience every aspect of motherhood. Give you another example. My sister, she was having her third baby. So we decided that when she goes into labor, she'll call me. We're just 5 minutes apart. I will go babysit the boys, and she and her husband would go. So I get the call. It's the middle of the night. I just grab my work clothes, and in my pajamas, I head out to her place. I'm thinking, okay, I'm just going to go into her house and sleep. As soon as I get there, she goes, we change your plans. Murtaza's staying home here. You're coming with me. I was like, okay. So I'm like thinking to myself, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And there it was. I was in the room with her. She was experiencing the birth of Maliha. When Maliha comes out, I hold her first. It's just, and if you look at it, I had that opportunity, and I could have seen, oh, why is God doing this to me? Untano, I feel like God blessed me to give me that opportunity that I actually could have. And there's so many more examples like that could be, shared with people, that if you just look at that and make somebody else's child like your own, now mind it, that comes with a lot of heartache too, because you always have to be very careful how you say it, because if you overstep, then you would have those sayings like, you wouldn't understand, you don't have children of your own. So those statements will come with the territory, and but just think of the love that you get back from that child, and just concentrate on that and forget about the other hurtful things, and you'll see it will be so much easier if you just look at that.
So I suppose what you're saying is to look at the positives in all situations, rather than the negatives, because every situation will have positives and negatives. So like, for example, the examples that you've given is that, not having a child, but having other children who you can sort of give your motherly love to.
Yes.
So it's not just, it's not stuck inside you. You can actually sort of give that, all that love that you have towards another child, which may not be your child, but at least God's given you these other children who come into your lives that you can give your motherly love to. Experiencing someone else going, that closely experiencing someone else going through the birth and holding the child as soon as they're born, although it's not your own child. Again, looking at the positives of being able to experience that to a certain extent. Having children who love you back so much, although you may be put in a situation where the parents may turn around and say, well, you're overstepping here, or what, it's not really your child, or what, yes, you may think that's right, but you really don't know because you haven't had your own children. So all that is quite negative, but also there's a lot of positives that come out of it as well. So looking at all the positives rather than the negatives is what I'm hearing from you.
Definitely. I can give you a couple of other examples. When Jamil and Sabira were expecting Inaya, I mean, to the whole process, Sabira kept me in the loop, and you felt part of the pregnancy, I remember going to LA after she was born, and we were visiting, and I remember once just telling her that, I'm going to take Inaya with me. Is it okay? She just was very upset with me, and I couldn't understand why she's upset with me, because why are you asking? She's your child. You just come and tell me, I'm taking her with you. You don't have to ask, and those kind of things make a difference. Just the other day, Zahra, my sister's daughter, my sister shares Zahra with me, and she calls me Mama. So whether you call me Chachi Jan, Tara Auntie, Tara Bai, Tara Chachi, Mama, whatever, to them, I am like a mother figure. They respect me like a mother figure. So like, she's learning Arabic, and in the Arabic, they were telling her Kalatain is like, because this person knows me, it's like you're like Sister Tahera. She's telling her, it goes, me no. So she comes home and she's telling her mom that, Kalatain is like my Kala, but Ummi is more like Mama. Right? So those kind of things bring sukoon to you, right? To your heart, that, even the child sees you like a mother, so why can't you just see the beauty in that and not think of like, what if the child comes back later on and say, you're not my mother? Why are you feeding into that fear of yours? Don't feed into the fear, feed into your hope, right? Like the hope that Rosina will come see me. I know she's in New York, but she will come see me, when I'm old and gray, or if I call on, any of your kids, they will come see me, Or remember the time when I was at the wedding for Shahid Hassan and Tyra Media, and Mushtaba Hussein came over and said, Tara Chachi, I'm going to miss you, because I can't give you a hug, but I'm giving mommy a hug, and then mommy can give you a hug, right? So those kind of things, like, just bring sukoon, like bring content to your heart, and it helps you accept that, what, there are children out there that actually will, complete you to a point where when you feel incomplete, and again, you're complete only if you yourself feel you're complete. Another example is when we went to the retreat, and everybody was talking about in the circle time, oh, I miss my children. At that point, you feel like, I don't have any children. How can I say I miss my children? So I say I miss my husband, kind of thing. And then at the end of it, then you have someone like Ruha who says, even though she's family, I've never known her until I know her, and she reminds me of my mother. So, and then on Mother's Day, she comes and brings me a gift. Or on Mother's Day, I have Riza, who every Mother's Day, he calls me to say Happy Mother's Day, and these are all children that really like bring joy to you. You don't feel lonely then.
So in a way, you actually have more children than any of us do.
I think I do. Yes, a lot of weddings to
Sounds
go
like
to.
Alhamdulillah. I suppose the other thing I'd like to ask you is, you know, you were talking about the fact that, like, if you were ended up in an old people's home and you'd be on your own and everything, but even when you have kids, there's no guarantee that your children will be there for you. I mean, you pray that they will. You know, you bring them up in a way that they understand what their duties are towards the parents and everything. But in the end, really, one of the lessons I suppose that you must have sort of come to is the total reliance on Allah, because it's sort of knowing that He'll never abandon you. He'll always be there. So even if you don't have kids who will take care of you, He will. And like you're saying, he sends other people's children to you when you need that. So whatever we need within our lives, it's having that total trust and reliance on God to send whatever we need whenever we need it, even if it's not in the way that we want it. Have you felt that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the difference is that when you have a child, the hope is there, right? Even though you may think you already have that, okay, inshallah, they will come see me. When you don't have your own child, you don't have that hope, that, oh, there is somebody who could, come see me, or there is somebody who could recite Surah Fatiha for me when I'm gone. So you do the extra effort that you want to do to make your akhirat better. So so God sends you these kids and you teach this kid something, and hopefully they will teach their kid, and you'll get the benefit for it, when you're 6 feet under, kind of thing. So we, like for me and Salim, we have to make that extra effort to make sure our akhirat is taken care of when we're not here, that people will actually remind us, that, hey, you know what? You need to remember this person, you need to recite Surah Fatiha for this person, or send a gift on behalf of this person. So we get opportunities from God that gives us that way of showing that, yes, you know what, God gave me this child, this person needs to learn something, let me teach that person. Going to madrasa, I remember when the madrasa principal in LA asked me to be a teacher, and I told her, look, I don't have any children, how can I teach? Because I had somebody who had come and told me that in order for you to be the principal of madrasa, you have to have children, otherwise you don't understand. So I didn't want parents to feel like, oh, she doesn't have children, how can she teach my child? And she goes to me, no, I want you to teach. And since 94, 95, I started teaching, and in any form or whatever. So till now, those kids, call me and ask me for advice. So I must have done something right, that they keep coming and asking for advice from me, alhamdulillah. So you have to, again, see the beauty of Allah in it. And yes, Allah comes first. And it takes a while to understand that Allah's, the best of planners. I know we hear it, but part of the grieving process is actually saying it's okay for me to be happy. I'm okay to be happy. I shouldn't be sad. I should be happy that I'm happy. And part of that, comes with loving yourself, accepting that, it's not in your control. If it's something that's in your control, then, you work hard for it, right? So at the end of the day, have you done everything possible to try to have a child? Yes. And if it didn't happen, it didn't happen. That wasn't what your journey is. Then you move on that doesn't make you who you are. You are a person of your own.
I think I think you've said so many powerful things here, which I just want to repeat, because I think they're so powerful. So one is that it's not on you. It's not something that you brought on yourself, and it's directly from God, because God chooses who to give children to and who not to. So if He's choosing not to give you a child, there's a purpose behind that, and there's a reason behind that, and everything that comes from God, the wisdom behind that, it's perfection. So that this is what there is a reason behind this, which we don't understand, and for us to sit here and try to sort of decide what God's reason is. Oh, she must have committed a sin, or what, she did this, that's why she didn't. It is wrong. Okay, yeah. That's. I think it's amazing that you're looking at it from the perspective of there's a greater purpose that God has, or a different purpose rather than a greater purpose, a different purpose in your life. Secondly, is the concept of you're allowed to be happy. I think that's so beautiful. It's like, who says you can't be happy if you're not married, or if you don't have children, or if you don't have boys, or whatever it is that society expects you to have or do. If you're not doing that, it seems like like you're saying, you're a failure, but in God's eyes, you're not. And the happiness should come from your relationship with God, I suppose, to a certain extent. And like you're saying, that's an ongoing journey that you've been on, where you're trying to sort of come to terms with this. And I think one of the other things that you said, which was really powerful, is that we know it all in our minds, but our hearts aren't aligned with our minds a lot of the times. And I think that's really powerful, because like you're saying, we constantly say, yeah, we plan and God plans, and God is the best of planners. And yes, of course, I trust Allah. And yes, you know what, I rely on Allah totally. But our actions don't actually show that. And it's because our heart is not aligned with what we know in our minds.
And that's okay. That's okay at all times. And that's another thing that I want to also say. It's okay if your heart and your mind are not in sync. That means that, that's another way of you getting closer to God, right? Because now you are, questioning, and you are talking more to God, and you're asking for his guidance. And the more you're doing that, then you actually see, God's beauty and God's mercy and God's rahmah on you, right? Like, before, it's very hard for people to understand when I say, oh, this is my grandchild. They're like, but you don't have any kids. I go, yeah, but this is my grandchild. It's very hard for people to understand that when I'm so proudly showing people pictures. Oh, look, this is my daughter. This is your daughter? I thought you didn't have any kids. I go, yeah, this is my daughter. It's very hard for them to understand that, because, I have opened my heart to them. And in return, they have opened their hearts to me. It's not the mind, because the mind knows that we're not, a child, but they open their heart to them. So if the mind and the heart were synced together, then that relationship would never happen, right? So it's the heart sometimes has to take over and say, you know what, I love you because you're like my mother, and I want to share my joy with you, and I want to be that child for you whenever you need.
And I think it's actually, like you're saying, opening your heart up, and maybe having it hurt, and going through the emotional roller coaster that you would with any child, but actually opening up your heart. I think one of the things that I constantly say, I think, which people laugh about, is, pray for my 6 children. And they're like, oh my God, you've given birth to 6 children. I'm like, no, I've given birth to 3, but they're all married, so I have 6 kids. And it's literally, I actually do feel like they're my children, because I've opened my heart up to them. And I think that's what we need to do. So it's not just when you don't have children. I think within our lives, we do have to open up our hearts to others. And sometimes we can feel that pain when you open yourself up to others. You can feel pain. And that's probably why a lot of the times we tend not to.
Yes. I mean, you open up your heart to, like, you say, oh, I never had a big sister. And you find somebody who treats you like a sister, say, oh, you're my big sister. You're okay with that. You open up your heart to them and you treat them as a sister. You consider them as a sister. You invite them to your family get-togethers, right? But when it comes to children, you tend to kind of pause. Why? I don't know. You tend to pause because you're going to get hurt. Well, the sister doesn't hurt you. Of course they hurt you. It's even, you open your heart to your husband, does that mean that you're not going to go through pains? That's why it's called heartaches, right? You go through all that, right? You just have to, that doesn't mean you stop loving that person. It doesn't mean that, you're not capable. I mean, you have a saying, right? It's a community who raises a child, right? It's just not me. It's everybody. You have your teachers, you have your Maulanas, you have everybody who has an impact on how the child is, getting up. I remember back in the day, my parents, my dad, he had 2 mothers, right? And all the 11 kids were raised by both mothers, and, you couldn't say, oh, this was not my mother. If you did, it would be a problem, right? So, I think that aspect of mine is not really mine, right? Just like my husband's not really mine, right? It's Allah has given him to me for a little while, for as long as he wants, right? And I think if we wrap our heads around that aspect, that everything that we're getting, it's not mine. It's not your children. It's Allah's children. Allah's giving them to you, so if you start thinking that everything that I have is not really mine, it can be taken away anytime, and you think about it, you have people who have had money, have lost money. Those people who don't have money have gained money, right? So you have all those, it's not just like, me not having children. It's everything in life, you have the struggles, right? So you just have to learn to understand that there is going to be a roller coaster. There is always going to be like heartaches, and the best part is that when you feel the heartache, your mind will come and say, you know what, it's okay. this is the way it's supposed to be, so it starts consoling you in a way, and the more you talk to God, you actually can, it helps. And sometimes talking to God, not like, oh God, you're wonderful, you've given me so much blessing. Sometimes actually pour your heart out to God, just like how you would pour your heart out to a friend. And that's another thing, that, find somebody to talk to. Don't be afraid to talk to. It's not shameful. It's not, uh, a taboo to talk about it. Go and talk to somebody who can understand you. Parents talk to other parents. Most of my friends, when the kids started happening, I didn't have anything else in common with them, because all they talked about was with kids. That doesn't mean that we weren't in common before. It's just they moved to a different phase of life, and that's all it is. And you have to learn to love that and be happy for them because they have had that opportunity, right? Then you have to find people that can relate to you. You've had people who actually miscarried. That's different from somebody who never had an opportunity to feel, being pregnant, right? So their struggles are going to be different. So you have to understand that, put Allah first, and if you see Allah in the picture and say, okay, this is what Allah wants, and then of course saying it and believing it are two different things. It takes a while, but I think after a little while, if you keep on saying it and saying it and saying it, it actually gets into the heart, and then you actually can see the beauty of it.
No, for sure. And I think some of the things that you said is really, really powerful. It's actually talking to God and complaining to God and like pouring your heart out to God. And there's nothing wrong with complaining to God. It's like, you're allowed to. In fact, the prophets did it. The Aima did it. It's to actually complain to Allah actually helps you to sync your heart and your mind together, because it builds that relationship. And you get a lot of answers as well when you're, sort of literally freaking out and telling God, why me? And and there's nothing wrong with that. It's when you badmouth God to others, I think, or you complain to others, then I think that's where you sort of actually then saying to God, yeah, I'm not happy with what you've done, and I'm going to tell the world that I'm not happy with it. Whereas when you're telling God, I don't think there's a problem with that.
Definitely. And even like telling you that I'm upset, I don't know why God's doing this to me, it's okay, because you're not really complaining about God. Because I think the thing is that, look at it this way: when someone comes into your life where you're going to be sharing this, God has sent that person to you. If you look at it that way, that God has sent this person at the perfect time, and you're going through this hardship to talk to, or you're reaching out to somebody, is because God's making you reach out to that person. So talk to that person, because they may give you some wisdom that He has given it to them to share with you. So, by saying that I'm angry at God, I actually told that to somebody. I'm angry at God, and they asked me why, and I went through it. And then, this person actually walked through my whole feelings with this, and made me realize that you're really not angry with God. You're angry at yourself because you don't want to accept it, right? That's what it is. And that's why we're afraid of that. We'll say, oh, I'm angry at God. And you would think like, oh, people are going to judge me that I don't have faith in God, that I become, away from God, and then I'm going to, go to hell. It's not about that. It's about the fact that you have to go through that whole thing. For example, my mom was very sick, she needed a liver transplant. We moved heaven and earth for her to get it, right? We moved from New York to Florida, we uprooted our whole lives to come over here so she can get a liver, right? There was no guarantee she would get it, right? But we tried. So, it doesn't mean you stop trying. That's what I'm trying to say. You keep on trying. Even though you have accepted it, you keep trying, because you never know. Maybe Allah's plan was not now, later on, right? And when you're talking to God, you'll get the answer definitely, but be ready that the answer will be no, right? Because we as parents, or even like when my niece comes and tells me, I want this, and I'll tell her, no, candy's not good for you, we say no. So just be okay that He will say no too, right? That's how it is.
I think, well, yeah, I totally agree. And I think one of the other things that you said, which was quite powerful, is not to be ashamed and to actually talk about it. I think that's really, really important. And maybe if we're open about it and we talk about it, then we actually get more du'as from people as well.
Yes.
I think dua, other people's du'as are very, very powerful. This concept of, I know within our community especially, it's like when you first find out you're pregnant, don't tell anyone for the first 3 months, because that's the chance of you miscarrying is in the first 3 months. So don't tell anyone till it's secure, and then tell people. But if the chances of you miscarrying are more in the first 3 months, surely you need the du'as more in the first 3 months. So
Definitely.
we do not want to tell everyone. And then, I actually remember having this conversation with a few people, and they turned around and said, yes, but if God forbid we do miscarry, then to deal with the people is going to be difficult. But surely not. If we're there as a community where we love each other and we want to support each other, then we don't go into the ins and outs of it. So if I find out someone's miscarried, rather than sort of saying to them, oh, how did it happen and what happened, and like you're saying, we would just maybe just phone them and say, look, I'm here, you're in my doors, if you need anything, reach out.
Definitely.
Or
Please don't say, you know what, it'll happen, don't worry, you'll get pregnant again. Please don't say that.
Right.
I mean, that's like the last that they need to hear about, right? Because they've just lost.
There's no guarantees, right? You're becoming God. It's like you don't know what's going to happen in the future.
Exactly. I'm still waiting. I still have people telling, oh, don't worry, it will happen. Okay, it will happen, inshallah, if God wants it.
But I think with miscarriage, it's really powerful, because we're told, within Hadith that, that child would be there on the day of judgment for you.
Yes.
So it's, that child was not created for no purpose. That child was created for you for the day of judgment, not for this world. He was created for the hereafter. And I think that's quite powerful as well.
Definitely.
So things like that are really, really powerful. We're coming to the end of the show, and it's been amazing. I can continue talking to you for hours on end.
Same here.
But just to finish off with everything that you've been through and all the struggles that you've been through and going through, 3 advices that you would like to give the listeners.
I had a feeling you were going to ask me that. So I had to write it down because I wanted to get the message across. So I'm just going to read, okay?
Okay, but give me a break in between each, so yes, I can sort of expand on it. Yeah.
Okay. First, grieve. Give yourself time to grieve. That's important if you want to heal. You have to mourn. You have to grieve, both you and your husband as well, and your extended family. And remember, you will grieve differently than your spouse. Don't think he's not hurting when he's not showing it in the way you are. You have a right to grieve your mourning, that the life that you imagine, life as a mother or a father. Most of us have faced a lack of understanding about a loss we've experienced because we didn't get to be mothers. We have no place to express that loss without facing it and acknowledging it. And we won't get there unless if we grieve. That's point number 1.
Okay, so the concept of actually, I suppose through the grieving, you're coming to terms with this idea of maybe not ever having a child of your own. So it's getting your head around it, but not being totally okay with it, that, you know what, now I'm fine, let's move on, let's go on to the next stage. It's sort of, okay, I'll still pray for it, but I may never get it. And I suppose that's what the grieving process is about.
Yes. So the thing is that, in every aspect, we're just like, Papa's passed away for so long ago. That doesn't mean that I don't remember him. It doesn't mean that I've forgotten him, right? That grief is there, but the grief is a different grief now compared to what it was there, because then, at the beginning, it's a complete different loss, because you understand throughout the whole process, you would think, oh, if Papa was here, he would say this, Papa was here, he would do this. So the grief, part of grief means that, you will, still experience that loss, but you actually understand that it's okay for you to cry. It's okay for you to be sad. It's okay for you to be angry. That's all for the process of learning to understand Allah's wisdom in it.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay. Allow yourself to be happy. Part of finding happiness is letting go of which something that does not make you happy. For instance, for me, the fact that I want to be a mother, it's not happening, right? So allow it to go away, just like any other thing, that's making you unhappy. You just let go of yourself, right? So allow it. Although I believe that having children would make me happy, I was miserable, unhappy, running in circles, trying to produce a baby that my body had no interest in producing, right? So you have to just let it go. I could have gone on trying forever, but it's not guaranteed, like you said, right? Letting go of that part of my life enabled me to find peace with my new life, even if it's a life that I wasn't sure I wanted to have.
Okay, so we're moving from grieving to being happy. It seems like you've got 2 totally opposite feelings. Just trying to get my head around it.
It's emotions, right? Your emotions are never going to be like that. You can't control your emotions, right? That's the point that I'm trying to make.
To a certain extent, you can. You can choose to be happy or sad.
Exactly. You can choose, right? That's your choice, right? But when you allow your choice to be, no, I'm not going to be unhappy. I'm going to be unhappy. I am going to be sad. That's going to help you not accept.
I think that's the thing. I think you can choose to be happy, but when you haven't actually handled the situation, then the choice of being happy is actually just covering it up and pretending to be happy. Whereas when you've actually grieved through it, or not even grieved, maybe just processed it. It's different for different people how they process things. Process, actually having gone through it, allows you then to put it to the side, but it never goes away. So then, because it's on the side, then you can choose to be happy now, but it's always there. So, you know, when you're praying, you know, when something happens, it'll still be there, but it's not in the forefront.
Yes.
And I think that's what it's about. I think, you know, a lot of the times people say, oh yeah, I've dealt with this, I'm okay with it, but all they've done is just covered it up. So it's still there in the forefront, it's just been covered up. Whereas when you've actually processed it, you've put it to the side. It's still there, but it's to the side.
Definitely. And lastly, that I want, find a support group, find somebody to talk to. It's easier when you let yourself out, you know. Yes, you listen, you talk to God, and you know, you let yourself out. But it's nice to know when you're talking to somebody, someone's going to talk and make some reason with you. Like in my case, you know, anybody who I've spoken to always found a way to show me a different perspective, you know, a perspective that I wouldn't have seen because I'm so involved in my own emotions, right? So find somebody to talk to. There's nothing wrong with, there's no shame in that. And that's one of the things that I remember, like, you can't talk to anybody about this, you know, that's your personal thing. Yes, but talk to somebody. And when you talk to that person, I'm saying, please don't share it with anybody else, because they're opening up their heart to you. It's like an amanat to you, you know, God sent you to them so you could be their reason at that point, you know, because they've lost that, you know, reason with the mind kind of thing. So don't say, oh, so-and-so came to me and she's going through this, bichari. Don't say, we don't want to be pitied. We just want to be able to share our hurt and have somebody come and say, you know what, it's okay. You know, don't say we understand, because you wouldn't understand unless you're in the same boat as us. Like I wouldn't say I would understand to you, but just say, okay, let's see what we can do to help you through this, you know, and then find a solution.
So I suppose here I'm hearing that, yes, it's important for me to have a relationship with God. It's important for me to talk to God, but at the same time, God's created me as a social animal, so I need to have others. And sometimes God sends people to us who are the right people to talk to at that time, and I need to take full advantage of that. So actually talking it through actually gives you a different perspective that this person brings into your life, so you can actually see it in a way that you may not have seen it before, and that will actually bring you closer to God then.
Definitely, yes.
Okay, so let's go through the three again. So process it, and if that means going through the whole grief system, you need to do that and actually grieve through the loss of not being given this opportunity of doing this. And this can be in anything. So it could be, okay, in your case, it's not having a child, but in someone else's case, it may be not getting married, or not having an education, or not having money or wealth or status or anything like that. So it could be in any situation. If it is something that is important, that you feel defines you, and you've lost it, and like you haven't been given that opportunity, then you need to be able to process it, and that may mean grieving the loss.
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay. I suppose this comes down to also maybe things that we've been through in the past. A lot of the times that affects us as adults. So things that have happened to us in our childhood still affects us as an adult. So we need to again process the situations that we were in as children, so that we don't then react as adults because of the things that we went through in the past.
Definitely.
Rather than burying our heads in the sand. So that's the whole concept of grieving and processing.
Yes.
And then the second advice you've given is to be happy. And the only way you can truly be happy is if you can, one, put these situations that you have no control over on the side, and let Allah decide when and if He wants to give them to you. And secondly, actually just accepting yourself for who you are.
Loving yourself.
And knowing that God created you would make you happy, right? Because the creator of the universe chose to create each one of us. So there's something special about each one of us.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, and also, I suppose, knowing that my purpose is not less because I'm not a wife, or not a mother, or not, something, or not a career woman, or not this. My purpose is to get closer to Allah, and that can be done in lots of different ways and different opportunities that God gives us. These are all opportunities that are given us, roles that are given to us to fulfill our journey. Am I?
Definitely. Yes.
Okay.
Definitely.
And then the last one you said was to use the tools that God gives us, including the people that he sends in our lives. And I think that's really, really powerful. And maybe I'd like to sort of think about specific people that have been sent in our lives, especially if you've been like your spouse is a specific person that God has chosen to be in your life for you to sort of grow from, and for you to sort of learn from each other, because your spouse is probably the one person who sees you as you truly are and can actually pick up the things that no one else can pick up, because we tend to sort of put these masks on in front of everyone else, and maybe sort of have that relationship with if it's your spouse or your parents or your siblings, those who are you really, really close to, who can actually see you for who you are, and actually then take some sort of feedback from them to learn to accept who you are and grow from who you are, and make sort of know what the weaknesses are and grow from that. And when you're talking to others, then I suppose them giving you a different perspective allows you to see the weaknesses in your thoughts or in the way that you're looking at things. And that's the beauty of being social animals, where we have so many different people come into our lives and teach us so many different things and look at things in different perspectives, and pull us up on things that we need to be working on as well, I suppose.
Definitely, your spouse should be your number one person to go to, because if your relationship with your spouse is not strong enough, then bringing children into the picture does not really make any difference. It actually adds to the problem. Your spouse truly completes you. I mean, it's half your faith, right? So he completes you. So like when he said, we are family. Yeah, same difference. Doesn't matter, right? Which way you go. I think of him as me, and he as me. So he completes me, I complete him, right? So
I think that phrase of his is beautiful, and I wish the men who are watching this would actually go home and inshallah they're at home, actually say this to their wives, because I think it's beautiful that when your husband tells you that, you're my family, the children came into our family, they didn't make the family, it's me and you who made the family. I think that's so beautiful, mashallah.
Yes, alhamdulillah, he said this to me a while ago, and since then, I've had a better perspective, I want to say. So you're right, God sends you the best of husbands, whoever your husband is, when you're going through this. And it's just not me. I've spoken to a lot of us who don't have children, and the one thing they all said, when I told them I was doing this talk, is I didn't know whether I wanted to do it or not. But I spoke to a few of them, and one of them said, if it wasn't for my spouse, this would have been a difficult journey. So, even, we have to acknowledge them, that, it is them who actually makes this journey much easier for us.
And you for them, it works both ways, right?
Excuse me?
And you for them, so it works both ways.
Definitely works both ways, definitely, yes. You can't clap with one hand, they say, right?
Exactly. No, alhamdulillah. It's been amazing talking to you. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this. And thank you so much for opening up and being very real and very true with how you felt through your journey, because I think that's been really, really powerful to actually say, what, yes, it was difficult, and it is difficult, and I'm, but it's a journey, and that's what it's about. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Inshallah.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share this journey. We get scared. I'll tell you that I was scared. But again, it's, if you bring Allah into the picture, that this is what He wants me to do, and if so I want to thank you for letting me do that. I also want to thank you for being my big sister.
Very well.
And I want to also thank all the mothers out there for sharing their children with me, and the fathers, the family, both of you, because they really bring joy to me and to the children, for respecting us, and making sure that we're happy as well. And lastly, of course, to my husband, without him, this would be, a much difficult journey.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you. Thank you very much for joining us on Real Talk. This is the last of the Real Talks for the time being, because next week is Eid, and the week after we'll have a session on getting into the right mindset for Muharram. So inshallah, Sheikh Jaffer and myself will be doing a session on getting into the right mindset, preparing ourselves for Muharram so we get the maximum benefit out of it, inshallah. And then after the 10 days of Muharram, inshallah, we can look into restarting Real Talk, inshallah. Thank you very, very much for joining us again.
Can you keep us in prayers, please?
Inshallah, you too. You can finish with the salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad.